This life is crazy. I can't even begin to fathom it. Yep. Kind of feels like I'm on a balance board right here. So I usually make one of these videos every couple of years when I start getting back into YouTube, and I've now been getting back into YouTube and have been posting pretty consistently for the past couple of months. So I figured it was time to do one of these, do a little catch-up video, and honestly, more than anything, it's kind of just good practice for me. I oftentimes get very overwhelmed in my day-to-day and kind of get caught up in everything going on, and I tend to forget about everything that I've done to get to this point. And so making these videos is kind of a good practice for me to kind of just like take a step back, look at everything that I've done, and yeah, just kind of helps ground me a little bit and kind of shows me that I've, done a lot to get here and I've put in the work, and so yeah, more than anything, it's good practice for me. So yeah, the last video I made back in 2020, in the fall of 2020, and like I said, if you want to watch it, I'll put it right here. It is a little cringy, so bear with me on that one, but it kind of touches base on my background in photography and how I kind of got into this whole lifestyle, and I actually just rewatched it again, and it's a pretty good watch. And this video is, everything that's happened since then, so since late 2020 till now, early 2025. So yeah, I don't want to talk too long in front of the camera right here because I've got a whole long video full of that. But yeah, just wanted to, more than anything, say thank you to everyone who's been here for a while, everyone who just found the channel and been supporting me, and it means a whole lot. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. When I think back to the early summer of 2021, I get smacked with nostalgia. I miss the feeling of being so free and so immersed in nature, with the opportunity to get up and go wherever I wanted to that day. I see myself standing next to my car that had already taken me so far on trips before, this time freshly built out and better equipped, ready for the road and all that it held for me. It was just me and the open road. I didn't have a concrete plan. I barely had a loose semblance of any sort of plan. Just a handful of jobs to keep me afloat, a lot of trust that I'd figure it out as I went, and a desire to see all that I could. Those months, living in the back of my car, were so transformative. Every day felt like a new adventure, whether I was driving through endless desert landscapes or waking up to the sounds of only nature around me. But it came with its challenges, as all things do. It was lonely at times, and there were nights when I parked my car under a star-filled sky and wondered if I was making the right choices. Was this lifestyle sustainable? Would it lead me to something bigger? Would I fail? Or would I succeed in this dream of mine? Yet, in those quiet moments, I felt a deep sense of peace, like I was where I was meant to be, even if I didn't have all the answers at the time. I look back at that version of me, and I'm so proud of him for taking the leap into the unknown, time and time again. By late 2021 and into 2022, things started to shift a little bit. I began landing some bigger jobs. At the time, I was still primarily photographing cabins and short-term rentals, which felt like such a natural fit for me. I was spending more time in places that inspired me, shooting work that aligned with the kind of life that I wanted to create. I was continuing to make a name for myself in the cabin niche after 3 years of trying to break through it. I stopped needing to reach out to cabins looking for work and was instead being sought after and inquired about. I spent that winter and then the spring and summer of 2022 really diving deep into my work. I landed a few brand partnerships during that time and things started to pick up a bit. I was still traveling and bouncing around, a bit nomadically, which continued to weigh on me. But I felt as though I couldn't take a breather. Not now. Not yet. Then, in the fall of 2022, the momentum shifted even more. It was the busiest season that I'd ever faced. I landed 2 of my absolute dream clients that I couldn't believe. Eddie Bauer and the New Hampshire Tourism Department. I couldn't believe it, and I had to pinch myself over and over again. I was working nonstop though, but it felt like all the effort that I had been putting in over the years was finally paying off. I was doing what I loved, with brands I admired, and places that I felt connected to. It was a whirlwind, but it was the kind of chaos that fills you up, and I knew I couldn't stop, or even let up just a little. After that crazy fall, I decided to take another leap, yet again. For 5 months, I left everything behind and embarked on an international adventure. 2 months in New Zealand, a month in Australia, a month in Bali, and a month in Spain. Each place bringing something different from the others. I grew, and I learned, and I lived. And it has honestly been such a treat getting to go back and look at all this footage. It was exhausting at the time, trying to capture everything that I could while still trying to be present. First up was New Zealand, and to this day it is still one of my all-time favorite places that I have ever been. It felt like a second home, almost immediately. The landscapes that I saw while traveling around in a van reminded me of the simplicity that I'd found living on the road back in the States. Jaw-droppingly stunning beauty, every which way you looked. Australia was full of energy and warmth, filled with new, loving friendships after a tough ending in New Zealand. I traveled around in another van for a week. This time it was a 40-year-old restored Kombi van. And not only did I have to reteach myself how to drive a manual transmission, but I had to do it on the opposite side of the car and road that I was used to. Peanut butter jelly. And then a couple of weeks cabin hopping with my then new friends, but soon turned soul family. It was everything that I could have possibly needed, and more. And then I bounced up to Bali, where I was really pushed out of my comfort zone, as I was living in a house with a handful of other strangers in a very foreign country. But after a little adjustment, I fell so in love with it all. I started riding a scooter around everywhere, was in the sun and eating fruit every day, and just trying to see and experience as much as I could in my short time there. I made some great friends there, and I shared experiences that won't soon be forgotten. And finally, for the last leg of the trip, I headed over to Barcelona. The mix of old world charm and vibrant creativity left me incredibly inspired. And though I was nearing the end of the trip,
and feeling all of the weight of it catching up to me, I was still trying to make the most of every moment that I could. And funding this whole trip wasn't easy. I had some money saved up, but I didn't have a ton of jobs lined up for this trip. I made it work through photography and social media, as I'd been doing for years now. And in the process of it all, I learned just how adaptable I could be, and how much I can do if I just put my head down and make it happen. Coming back to the States in 2023 was a bit tough, to say the least. The reverse culture shock hit hard, and I was feeling a little bit lost. After half a year just traveling around with my worries to the wind, it was back to reality now. And the plans I wanted to make happen seemed unlikely, so I had to readjust. Soon, though, I started landing some jobs again, and I was back to driving everywhere for work, spending countless hours behind the wheel, chasing opportunities, and trying to keep up with the momentum that I'd built before leaving. But honestly, I felt as though I was about to hit a breaking point, which, looking back on it now, I think it really meant that I had already hit it, but now was past the point of being able to push through it. The constant travel, the 15+ hour work days, it all started to wear me down. There were moments where I wasn't sure if I could keep going. Burnout became a real thing yet again. I had to confront the fact that I'd put everything else in my life on hold to chase this dream. It wasn't easy, but those moments, they reminded me why I started this journey in the first place, and why I had to keep going. After a tough end to 2023, I wasn't entirely prepared to start another year, let alone to try and make it through New England winter first. But for not really wanting to embrace it, I think that I made the most out of the early start of that year. And not long after, I took a huge step towards something that I'd been dreaming about for years. I bought land in Vermont, and it was again another big leap, but one that felt, and still to this day feels, right. But it was a dream that I had to pause while another one was taking place, the Teton Project.
I feel like we should tell the story about how this whole crazy idea came about. What do you remember from the early days?
Yeah, so, summer of 2023, I went out to Teton Valley of Idaho. I was working at this pretty sweet-looking cabin with arguably one of the most insane views of any Airbnb I've ever stayed at and worked at, of the beautiful Teton mountain range. And while I was there, I was flipping through the little guest book thing, and I saw that the owner, Mike, had a wooden sailboat refurbishing, working type company. And my good old pal Luke, that spring, had just purchased a old wooden boat named Holiday. Beautiful, beautiful sailboat.
She sure is pretty.
She sure is pretty. Might as well connect the two of them. And so I reached out to Luke, was like, hey, I'm going to connect you with this guy. You guys have pretty niche interest in common. And a couple months later, maybe even just like a month later, I was driving back east from Colorado and, humming along on I-85, 70, I-70, one of them highways that I drive on all the time. And I get a call out of the blue from Luke, and he hits me up. He's like, hey, so Mike reached out to me, and we got to talking, and we hit it off. Luke kind of told me that Mike wanted to, he had another plot of land on, where that previous cabin was, and he was interested in, building another cabin and kind of wanted to go a non-traditional route. And, Luke has a background in creative design. He's designed cabins, he's designed buses into homes. He helped me with my car to turn it into like a little tiny home on wheels. So yeah, that's, he reached out to me saying all that, and I was like, well, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, you want to come do it with me, document it? And I was like, yeah, I do.
In May of 2024, my good buddy Luke and I packed our rigs and headed out west to go move to the Teton Valley of Idaho.
This is nice, actually.
We had plans to be out there while the Hill House, a dwelling designed by Luke, was being built, documenting and capturing the build start to finish. But fairly early on in our time there, we learned that the project was going to have to be put on pause until the following year. And after another adjustment period of letting that one sink in, we made peace with it, and made the most of the rest of our time out there before heading back home to New England for the rest of summer and fall.
Really? So I was kind of like,
I was saying me, I'm programmed.
And for me, I struggled a little bit once being back. I had to yet again do a 180 after just moving my life out west, and I had to try and figure out how I wanted the rest of that year to look like. It didn't end up being too shabby though. It was my first time getting to really enjoy a New England summer. I got to do some exciting work, and I had a busy and amazing looking fall coming up. And then it was fall in New England, my favorite time and place to be. It was a beautiful whirlwind of jobs and travels and foliage. And then it ended with Jess and I signing a lease at a farmhouse in Vermont, just 30 minutes from the land that I purchased. And that about sums it up. To everyone who's been a part of this journey, whether you've been following since the beginning or have just joined, thank you. Your support has made all of this possible, and the past 4 years have been full of twists and turns. They've taught me that life is rarely predictable. Far from it, actually. But that's what makes it beautiful. And I'm so excited to see where this next chapter takes us. Till next time, talk soon.